What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Classic Octane. I am Taylor. So I'm about to show you guys a bike that I just finished building. A lot of you who have seen the last couple of videos have seen it in the background, but I just officially finished it. And I'm gonna do my best to go over all of the parts I used and kind of answer any potential questions. If you haven't noticed yet, I did disable the comments on this video because this is a customer's bike and I don't want to open them up to the criticism that comes with having your bike on the internet. I just want to show you guys what I've been up to and maybe give you some inspiration for one of your builds. So if this is your first video of mine and you like this kind of content, think about subscribing. I would appreciate it. Give a thumbs up if you like this video. Let's get into it. So here is the bike. This is a 1971 Honda CB350. This bike came to me out of North Texas. Basically, the bike had been sitting for, I want to say 5 to 7 years. I don't want to say neglected, it just was parked and left that way. So I did have to go through a couple of things to get it back running. I was going to make a will it run video on it, but really all I did was put some fuel in the carbs and make sure everything was complete. It had oil in it and it pretty much fired up. So since then I did do a complete carb rebuild with vapor blasting. And kind of just went through the bike. So this bike, I was able to have some creative freedom. The customer basically just wanted something a little bit custom, but nothing too radical, a fun bike to just ride around, but not really have to, tinker with too often. Ideally, it would be, as reliable as a 50-plus-year-old motorcycle can be. So that's the kind of direction I was given. What I decided to do with that was, since this stock tank and the forks and headlight and these side covers were in such good condition, and I love this dark kind of maroon red color, I decided I wanted to keep all of that. So we didn't want to paint the tank. We didn't want to, get rid of the side covers. I wanted to keep a lot of that original. And that kind of led me down this path of, keeping as much of the bike original as possible with just adding kind of a custom twist. So we'll just start from the very front. I love the fact that it has the drum brake in the front. Of course, they're not as efficient as discs. They just look really cool. So we went with black on the wheels to kind of darken that up a little bit. We didn't want a ton of chrome, just a few chrome accents here and there. These tires, I will throw a link to all of the parts I can in the description below. These are 3.5 by 18. I don't remember the model offhand. Again, I will throw it in the description. It's the same tire front and back. It's a 3.5 18, and I think they're awesome. They have a little bit of an aggressive kind of knobby look, but they're still very rideable on the street. Up there, we just got rid of the big stock signals, went with a smaller LED signal. I decided to keep these stock gauges because even with the lowered bars, they don't stick up super far. On a lot of my 550s, if you keep the stock gauges and you put a lower bar, the gauges will stick a couple of inches above the handlebar. Here, it keeps it nice and level, so I think the stock gauges kept the look we wanted. I did go with a little bit lower handlebars, like I mentioned. I'll throw a link to those in the description as well. The rest of the controls and everything we kept entirely stock. The gas tank was pretty rough on the inside, so I did have to clean out the whole thing, kind of de-rust it, and then give it a good tank liner, which is done now. Moving on, we went with this nice kind of distressed brown seat. And originally the customer had wanted to go with a frame hoop for the back section of the frame, but on these early 350s, the frame is actually stamped steel. It's not a traditional tube style frame. So matching that up to a tube frame hoop, it was just never gonna look right. So what I decided to do instead was to chop a CB550 rear fender, about, I would say probably 10 inches long total, so I can keep these stock frame rails. Underneath this seat, there's generally a nice big kind of connector. I had to chop that off and put a solid bar so we still have that kind of stiffness in the frame. That also gave me a rear mounting point for my seat, but it got rid of the huge hump that is on the stock frame. So that's the only modifications we really had to make to the frame, was just adjusting that kind of rear support to work with our seat. I did also trim off the mounts for the original seat, the kind of hinges. And I think it looks really, really clean. I did just find these little LED brake lights, and I really like it. It's only like 30 bucks. Again, I will throw a link to this on the in the description below as well. But I'm actually going to put this taillight on my CZ750 because I like it better than the one I have on there now. It's LED, it's nice and bright. We also have the matching little signals off of the frame on the rear as well, because I wanted to have nice bright signals, but I didn't want to have those, huge Dumbo ears that are factory. So while I was keeping the customer's budget in mind and we decided to keep these stock side covers, that made a couple of decisions very easy for us. So we were actually able to run the stock air filters, which these bikes are designed to run on. So tuning's a little bit easier. I can get really good results out of a pod filter, but if at any time I can run a stock filter and it doesn't, affect the overall look of the bike, I'll go with a stock filter just because they're going to run just that little bit better. It also allowed us to run a less expensive, standard battery as opposed to having to go lithium ion, which means we didn't have to upgrade the voltage regulator and rectifier. So keeping these side covers really did drop the cost of the build quite a bit and kept us right under that threshold that the customer set aside for work to be done. The exhaust is a MAC 2-in-1 that we did wrap with my favorite titanium color exhaust wrap. The link to that will be in the description as well. That really covers a lot of the customization we did to this bike. Everything else I did was basic maintenance, oil changes, brake adjustments, that kind of stuff. The idea, again, being that we keep a lot of this bike stock. This bike could be returned to stock without much work. We would have to re-weld in that little brace on the rear frame, but everything else, could be returned. All the signals, everything else could, in theory, be bolted right back up, which is one of the goals I had since this bike did start off in such good condition. We did remove the front fender, but that could easily be put back on as well. So I am stoked on how this bike turned out. I'm going to be posting a couple of kind of close-up pictures on Instagram as well. If you don't follow me on Instagram, go check it out at Classic Octane. If you have any questions about this bike, that's going to be the best place to go and ask them too. You can either ask the question on the picture itself or DM me or something like that. I'm happy to help however I can. If you have a CB350 and you're looking to pull off a similar build, obviously this one's fresh in my mind. So let me know if you have any questions. Well, that's where I'm going to call it on this quick overview video. Again, if you guys have any questions about this bike, go leave a comment on one of the pictures on Instagram of it, or feel free to DM me on Instagram as well. I will answer everything I can. I will also make sure to put all those parts, the link to them in the description below, like I mentioned. So hopefully if you guys have a CB350 and you like part of this build, you'll be able to kind of build it on your own, and I can give you at least a little bit of a head start. I need to get back to work on the CB500, which you guys will be seeing a video within the next couple of days on it. It's about time to put the engine back in. I'm just wrapping up putting some new wheel bearings and stuff in the rear wheel so I can put a tire on it. We can put it back on the bike and get this thing down the road. My goal is to finish that bike by the end of next week, so stay tuned for that. Again, if this is your first video and you're into this kind of content, think about subscribing, and I'll see you guys soon.